स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the discussion on Ramakrishna the Great Master or Leela Prasanga, written by Shardanandaji Maharaj. So yesterday, in the introduction part, that is the introduction to divine incarnation as spiritual aspirant sadhaka, we were going through the subheading, that is sadhaka and sadhana. Sadhaka means a spiritual aspirant. Sadhana means his spiritual practices or exercises, disciplines to reach the goal or realize his real nature or to get eternal freedom. So in that, we were going through some of the aspects where step by step Shardanandaji Maharaj is taking while he's going through the sadhana or spiritual practices, how he gets different visions, different experiences while he's going through the path of devotion, iti marga, where he will take up this world as true manifestation of God. And in Neti Neti Marga, it will be a different manifestation for him where he denies everything. He wants only the experience of God. Neti Neti Marga, na iti, not this, not this. This is not God, this is not God. So now both the aspects or both the paths seem to the lead to the same goal. So that's what now Shardanandaji Maharaj has brought us into the experience. We have come to the end of those both the experience where we will see the whole external world vanishes. So it now leads us to the much more real aspect of the world of ideas, ideation or ideal. So that was where we were in the last class. We will again revise a little and go forward. Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling, thus the gross external world vanishes from the mind of the devotee owing to the meditation on a particular object of the realm of the ideal world. For when one idea becomes dominant, all the other idea disappears. The attainment of the Nirvikalpa Samadhi is not very remote for this devout aspirant who has been able to advance so far. Thus, the mind of the person who gets rid of the belief in the existence of the external world to which he has been accustomed for an infinitely long time becomes endowed with much power and determination. The whole of his mind goes forward with enthusiasm in the direction of the enjoyment of the divine bliss. When once there arises the conviction and the enjoyment of that bliss becomes more intense if the mind can be made completely free from modifications. I had explained all these things in the last class. We will again go through some special experience here. Thus, the mind of the person who gets rid of the belief in the existence of the external world to which he has been accustomed for an infinitely long time. Now, this external world, experience of the external world, we are accustomed for a long time, many lives or many years. And so it has become so real. When we are in the dream, it is real. But only sometimes in the dream or at the time of breaking, we come to know we are in the dream. When we get up to this waking state, then we feel that, oh, that was all untrue. Likewise, this experience which we are having now in this waking state is also untrue, just like all the experience, whatever you are seeing, whatever you are hearing me, what I am talking, everything looks false or untrue when you get the higher experience, when you go to the higher experience. That is what Shardanandaji Maharaj is taking us through, because that becomes so real. When you wake up to that reality, then this will look like a dream. So it's all false. Just like when we are in the dream, it will be true to us there. So now, just to make it a little more clearer, I just want to take through the experience of Swami Vivekananda when he came to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa as an aspirant, wanted to realize God. He was asking questions. I think it was the second meeting or the third meeting when Narendra was given the experience of this highest state, because Ramakrishna knew that he had bought him from the Saptarishi Mandala. He was a Dhyana Siddha. He was one of the greatest of the Saptarishis. And Ramakrishna is an avatar incarnation. He took the form of a small baby, and then going to this, one of the greatest of the rishis, Saptarishis, he told, I'm going down. Will you also come down? We all know that experience. Then he came to know that that was Narendra, the rishi who has come, or Shiva Amsha Sambhuta. So directly, as soon as he came, he wanted to give him one great experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, a very high aspect, because he was eager to train the devotee and help the people of the world. So even in the very second or third meeting, by his touch, he wanted to give him the higher experience. And when he touched and when he gave that experience, what happened? Let us see. Then it will become a little clearer to us. Now, Narendra himself, as a boy of 17 or 18, now he's narrating this incident. Now, let us go through his experience now. Then you will come to know what Shardanandaji Maharaj is trying to tell us here. Narendra is telling, I did not realize then that the temple garden of Dakshineshwar was so far from Calcutta. Since on the previous occasion, I had gone there in a carriage. The road seemed to me so long as to be almost endless. However, I reached the garden somehow and went straight to Sri Ramakrishna's room. I found him sitting alone on the small bedstead. He was glad to see me and calling me affectionately to his side made me sit beside him on the bed. But the next moment I found him overcome with a sort of emotion, muttering something to himself. With his eyes fixed on me, he slowly drew near me. I thought he might do something queer, as on the previous occasion, but in the twinkling of an eye, he placed his right foot on my body. The touch at once gave rise to a novel experience within me. With my eyes open, I saw that the walls, you should note the experience here, it's very, very important. I saw that the walls and everything in the room whirled rapidly. It started whirled rapidly and vanished into naught. And the whole universe together with my individuality was about to merge in the all-encompassing mysterious world, void. All-encompassing mysterious void. I was terribly frightened and thought that I was facing death. For the loss of individuality means nothing short of that. So here, the ego, the I sense is getting destroyed. And you will be having only the experience of Parabrahma Swarupa, your real nature. But at that time, Narendra was not ready. So he was feeling that he was about to merge in an all-encompassing, mysterious void, emptiness. I was terribly frightened and thought that I was facing death. For the loss of individuality means nothing short of that. Unable to control myself, I cried out, what is it that you are doing to me? What is it that you are doing to me? I have my parents at home. Now, when Narendra started making such sounds, Ramakrishna laughed at him. He laughed aloud at this and stroking my chest again. All right, all right. Let it rest now. Everything will come in time. The wonder of it was that no sooner had he said this than the strange experience of mine vanished. I was myself again and found everything within and without the room as it had been before. So you can see during the time when Ramakrishna tried to give him this experience of Samadhi, the higher state, what happened to the exterior world and the interior world too. You can see. Again, I will go through that so that you will understand. In the twinkling of an eye, he placed his right foot on my body. The touch at once gave rise to a novel experience within me. With my eyes open, I saw that the walls, that is the exterior world where he was sitting in the Dakshineshwar. So the room of Ramakrishna. So the walls where he was sitting inside the Dakshineshwar room of Sri Ramakrishna, the walls and everything in the room whirled rapidly, started whirling, going round and round and round, whirled rapidly and vanished into naught, emptiness, nothingness. And the whole universe together with my individuality, the whole universe, external universe, as well as the internal universe, that is my individuality, that is Narendra's ego, the I sense, I am Narendra, was about to merge in all encompassing mysterious void. So the bondage, the pasha, the last pasha of the ego was about to be destroyed by the touch of the Guru. But Narendra felt so afraid to lose his individuality and all that external world experience is being taken away, and he was about to get the reality, his own true nature, but he was not ready. So he started shouting, "Oh, what are you doing to me?" He was terribly frightened, unable to control myself. I cried out. Narendra is telling, "What is that you are doing to me? I have my parents at home." Ramakrishna laughed aloud. Ramakrishna wanted to give the experience, but the disciple was not ready. So, all right, let it rest now. Everything will come in time. The wonder of it was that no sooner had he said this than the strange experience of mine vanished. I was myself again and found everything within and without the room as it had been before. So you can see the external world is just an appearance. So by the touch of the Guru, by the will of the Lord, the Ishtadevata, when he is about to give the experience that all will vanish, it is a dream. But now Narendra was not ready to come out of this dream. He wanted to stay in that dream. So Ramakrishna told, okay, everything will come back in time. We'll come to know the reality. It's not so easy. Ramakrishna wanted to eager to give him that experience immediately. Then the second or the third visit itself, he wanted to give. He was so eager. So now let us not waste any time. We'll go to the proper discussion here, the sadhaka and sadhana. These are the ways laid down by the scriptures for persons treading the paths of knowledge and of devotion to arrive at their ultimate goal. But as the divine incarnations are endowed with the human and divine natures simultaneously all through their lives, they are sometimes seen to manifest the knowledge and power of the perfect person even in their sadhana periods. This happens because they naturally have the power of abiding in both the planes, the divine and the human, or because their divine nature is inborn and spontaneous. Sometimes it pierces the external veil of their human nature and manifests itself from time to time. Because we, the living beings, the jivas, are bound to this world, or we come to this world because of our karma. We are bound. Our karmas, good or bad, drags us here to this world. It is out of force, it is out of bondage. We come. But the incarnations, they take up the bondages themselves. There is no karma for them to drag down. By their self-will, willingly they come down. They take up all these imperfections and human nature, human personality, and human body to come down to our level and help us. So they don't have any bondage. They don't have any karmic force to pull them down. They are free. That's why their divine nature is inborn and spontaneous. Sometimes it pierces the external veil of their human nature and manifests itself from time to time. Whatever may be our conclusion, these facts have made the lives of the incarnation of God impenetrably mysterious to the human intellect. It does not seem probable that this intricate mystery will ever be solved completely. But it is very certain that endless good accrues to man if he studies these lives with reverence. Again, you have to note the words of Shardanandaji Maharaj, the great direct disciple, who is considered by none other than the Holy Mother, the Divine Mother, as next only to Swami Vivekananda. You go through all the 3 words or 14 words, you will not get one person of this spiritual stature. In his large-heartedness, he is next only to Swami Vivekananda. So such a great person, Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling, whatever may be the conclusion, these facts have made the lives of incarnations of God impenetrably mysterious to the human intellect. It does not seem probable that this intricate mystery will ever be solved completely. But now you have to note what Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling, which is very, very important for our life as sadhakas. But it is very certain. It's very true. What is that truth? What is that which is very certain? That endless good, please note it, endless good accrues to man. It's very certain, it is very, very true. There's no doubt about it. That endless good accrues to man if he studies these lives with reverence. If you study the life of the incarnation with reverence, with faith, then you will get endless good. Endless good will accrue to you. There's no doubt about it. It is certain. I'm stressing this again and again. By reading, by going through the lives of the great incarnation, by meditating on this Lila Dhyana, the sportive meditation, the meditation on the sport of the incarnation, Lila Dhyana. So, Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling it is very certain that endless good accrues, not ordinary good, endless good accrues to man if he studies these lives of the incarnation with reverence. In the past Puranic age, human nature of the incarnations of God were kept hidden. We all know Puranas are different type of scriptures. The highest, topmost scriptures in Hinduism is the Vedas. So together with that, they are called the Prasthanatraya, pillars of Hinduism, pillars of our Sanatana Dharma. It is the Vedas, and in that we get the Upanishads. Then based on Vedas, the meaning of the Vedas, the essence of the Vedas and the Upanishad is given by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So the essence made relevant to the present age by Lord Krishna, the great incarnation. So is the Bhagavad Gita. So it is another pillar of Hinduism. Then another pillar of Hinduism is the Nyaya Prasthana, which will logically connect all these things, made rational. That is the Upanishads of the Vedas, then the Bhagavad Gita, and all that is given there to be made logically acceptable to the present day skeptical and intellectual and scientific mind. So that is Brahma Sutra. Who has done this? It is Vedavyasa or Krishna Dvaipayana. Vedavyasa, you know, all Vyasa. All of you know, we celebrated recently the Guru Purnima. It was the birthday of Vedavyasa. His original name is Krishna Dvaipayana. So the Brahma Sutra, these are the pillars of Hinduism, Prasthanatraya. As Hindus, we should know. That's why I'm telling that again. As Hindus, we should know what are our basic canonical text, the important text, Prasthanatraya. Traya means 3. The 3 pillars of Hinduism is the Upanishads of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras. Then in the hierarchy come so many other scriptures, the Shastras, just like the Puranas, Agama Shastras, then this, what do you call, Ramayana, Mahabharata. Ramayana is not a Purana. It is the first poetry. It is called Kavya. Kavya means poetry. So the first poetry, life of Rama, the path trodden by Rama, Ramasya Ayanaha, Ramayana. So the path trodden by Rama is called Ramayana. That is a Kavya, poetry. Then Mahabharata is Itihasa, history. Then there are so many Puranas. These are all the scriptures of Hinduism. So many, made to make it easy for the common man, uneducated or even common man at the lower rung of the ladder. They can't understand too many complex things like the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra. It's very tough. So to make us understand all these concepts from a very, very ordinary level, all these have been done by our great rishis, the Puranas, through stories of different people, king, priest, common man. So with that stories, they have made all these. These are all Puranas. Bhagavata, Devi Purana, Shiva Purana, Skanda Purana, Garuda Purana. So many Puranas are there. The main Puranas are 18. But there are, other than that, so many Puranas. Let us not now go there. I just explained it to understand what are our scriptures. So here we got the term in the past Puranic age. That's why I told the word, it is one of the scriptures. That is, Purana means Pura Api Nava. It comes from the Sanskrit word Pura, means old. Even though it is old, it is always new. Pura Api Nava. Purana means even though it is very old, the stories of so many old rishis, so many saints, so many common men, even though it is very, very, very old, thousands of years old, it is always new, refreshing, new. That is the meaning of Purana. So in that age, there was the Vedic age, very old, 50,000, 60,000 years back. Then came the next age in the Ramayana. Then after that, we see that Ramayana and all other thing is the Puranic age. After the Satyuga or after the Vedic age, it is the Puranic age. So here, Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling in the past Puranic age. So you should know what is Purana. That's why I told explained all these things. So they are also our scriptures. In the past Puranic age, the human nature of the incarnations of God were kept hidden, and the divine aspect alone discussed. In this skeptical modern age, the divine nature of the divine nature of those characters is being completely disregarded, while the human side is being highlighted. In the present instance, we shall make an effort to explain to the reader by a discussion of these two aspects that both the nature coexists in the incarnations. Both the aspects, that is the divine nature as well as the human nature, coexists. It will be going parallelly together in the life. So both the nature coexists in them. Who are them? Who are they? Incarnations. So it is needless to add here that we would not have been able to look upon the character of an incarnation of the God in that way had it not been for the privilege of all these direct disciples who lived with Sri Ramakrishna, the divine incarnation of this age, for many, many, many years and studied his life from the close quarters, observed, experimented, studied the life of Sri Ramakrishna, the divine incarnation, from very, very close contact or quarters. They were with him, they lived with him, they got the teaching and they observed. They were well versed in the present day science and other things, modern education. So they had both this modern education given by the British at that time, the Western education, the psychology, the science and everything. So with that knowledge, they started observing everything. It's not just believing or having faith and something in the Guru and just writing it. They are comparing it with the modern day education, the skeptical knowledge of the science and everything, then putting the life of Sri Ramakrishna into that test. So that's very, very important here. So in the present instant, we shall make an effort to explain to the reader by a discussion of these two aspects that both the natures of incarnations coexist in them. Both the nature, that is the human nature, and also the divine nature coexist in them. It is needless to add here that we would not have been able to look upon the character of the incarnations of God in that way had it not been for the privilege we had of meeting the great master and observing his life and doings. So they have minutely observed it, not ordinarily, minutely lived with him and then observed it. So that is what Shardanandaji is mentioning. Life and also the doings and teachings and everything. So they have tested him thoroughly. That also you should know. Many of the disciples, Narendra has tested Ramakrishna thousands of times maybe. Sometimes it would go to the extremes. Narendra's testing of Ramakrishna would go to the extremes, but Ramakrishna would not get upset. Yes, you should test the Guru. Not only in the daytime, you should test him in the night time too. Yoganandaji Maharaj, he too test him, put Ramakrishna into very peculiar test. Ramakrishna was not at all upset. Everybody, almost all the disciples put him to varieties of tests who came to him. He withstood all the test. Not one. 16 direct disciples and many other householder disciples, everyone put Ramakrishna into so much of tests and examinations, he came out of it unscathed because he had truth within him. So now we are going to the next chapter, that is the attitude of a sadhaka in the life of an incarnation of God. Now, we have already discussed so many things here in the introduction. Now, before going and reading all those things, we will enter into the proper life. We'll take more time for proper life of Sri Ramakrishna. So much of introduction for sadhaka, sadhana. We have come to know what is real spiritual practices, exercises, disciplines, and what should be the nature, the mind of a spiritual sadhaka who has to undergo the mumukshum ichcha, who wants liberation. So what should be his life? All those things we studied just now through so many classes. We have gone through all those things. Now it's the time to enter into the proper life with this background. It'll be, you can understand the life of Sri Ramakrishna better. Okay. Now we all know that Ramakrishna had the vision of Divine Mother. We saw it again and again. What was that vision like? What were the experiences he had at the time? Now, what happened after that? We shall see. What was now, see, the life of Sri Ramakrishna was a different thing before the vision of Divine Mother. Now, after the vision, and now he started doing so many sadhanas. So, what is his life? What is his behavior? What is the human aspect coming out? What is the divine aspect coming out? We shall see, study, so that it will be very, very beneficial. As Shardanandaji Maharaj has told earlier in the introduction, it will do immense good, not ordinary good. Immense good to the people who study it, meditate on that, think on that. So with that attitude, it will do us immense good to move forward in sadhana. It will purify our mind. So the study of this, both the divine nature and the human nature of Sri Ramakrishna, the incarnation, present incarnation, will do us not ordinary good, but immense good. So with this faith, with this attitude, let us enter into the life of Sri Ramakrishna and observe it. We shall also observe it, we shall test it, take it deeper into our heart, and with that idea, we shall also move forward in spiritual life. Nothing, other thing, sadhana and other things you need not do, whatever Guru has given, but meditate on the aspect, the human aspect and divine aspect of the avatara, that is more than enough. The external world, see, we talked of the external world and the internal world, when you get the experience. So now we are getting the external world was now transformed for this divine incarnation, that is Ramakrishna, into a dream world, because he has had the experience of the reality. So he woke up into the reality. He was in this dream state which we are now in. So that external world was now transformed for him into a dream world. Now he could not attribute substantiality. Now he could not attribute substantiality to it in spite of his effort. So this external world is becoming less real and less real because he has seen the truth, the reality. Now he could not attribute substantiality to this external world in spite of his efforts. The universal mother's form, consisting of pure consciousness and bliss, that divine, that universal mother's form consisting of pure consciousness, awareness, and bliss, ananda, joy, bliss, eternal, infinite bliss, consciousness was now to him the only reality. Why couldn't he attribute substantiality or the reality into this world? Because the universal mother's form consisting of pure consciousness and bliss was now to him the only reality. Previously, on some occasions, at the time of worship and meditation, the master used to see a hand of the Divine Mother or a foot, bright and delicate, just like in the chapter Sadhaka and Sadhana, Shardananda Ji Maharaj explained how the aspirant, while going forward, the beginning he will see. So now you can see Ramakrishna is also having all those things. Previously, on some occasions, at the time of worship and meditation, the master used to see a hand of the Divine Mother or a foot, bright and delicate pada, the feet of Divine Mother, 1 foot or 2 feet, bright and delicate, or her sweet and affectionate and smiling face. Her sweet, affectionate, and smiling face. Every word we have to wait and enjoy it. Every word here, the experience of Sri Ramakrishna, we have to undergo it, putting it into our own heart, experiencing it ourselves, and tasting it, enjoying it. Every drop of that we have to enjoy. Then only you will feel the happiness of reading this divine life. So her sweet, affectionate, and smiling face. You have to see now the smiling face of Divine Mother, the sweetness in the face, the affection, how the mother shows the affection towards the child. So the affection, what would be the affection of the Divine Mother, the mother of all mothers? So her sweet, affectionate, and smiling face, supremely beautiful, supremely beautiful. Now he saw even at times other than those of worship and meditation. Not only during meditation, not only during worship, he could see this form of Divine Mother all the time. Other than meditation or other than japa or other than spiritual practices too, he could see. Now he saw even at times other than those of worship and meditation, the full figure of the effulgent mother, the full figure of the effulgent mother, smiling and speaking, guiding and accompanying him and saying, do this, my child. Don't do that, my child. Perform this. It is good to you. Do not do that thing. Just like the mother does to the child. Like that, the Divine Mother or the Parabrahma Swarupa, the God doesn't have any gender, male or female. But for the sake of the aspirant, he takes the gender. So now, for Ramakrishna, the Lord, the greatest formless, attributeless Lord, awareness, consciousness has taken the form of mother. Whatever you want, God will take that, assume that form and help you. So now, because for Ramakrishna it was Divine Mother, so that Lord has taken the feminine form of the mother. God has taken that feminine aspect, motherly aspect. Formerly, when he offered cooked food, etc., to the mother, he used to see an extraordinary ray of light coming out. So now you should note, whenever we are offering food to God, we all think that, oh, the Lord doesn't accept, he doesn't eat it, because all the other things are there itself. Whatever you offer to God are there in the plate. Nothing has been taken. So it is just our belief, it is our Shraddha. We just offer it and take it away as prasad. That's all. No. Ramakrishna had the vision before. What was happening when his uh, spiritual experiences were not so intense? What would he see when he used to offer before Mother gave him the vision, and fully effulgent form of the Divine Mother, full effulgent form of the Divine Mother would always be with him, guide him. So earlier in the sadhana, when he used to offer cooked food to Mother, what would happen? Now you will enjoy, you will see what will God do when you offer food to God. What happens there? What is happening behind the scene? When you do Naivedya, when you do the offering, food offerings, when you do Arati, when you do the Agarbatti, show the Agarbatti to the Lord, when you offer flowers to the Lord, when you do the sweet services to the Lord, so many different type of loving services you do to the Lord. How does the Lord accept it? Now you can see it. Formerly, when he offered cooked food, etc., to the Mother, so here cooked food and other things means water, milk, and agarbatti, or what do you call the incense, dhuna, dhupa. Then it may be water at the feet to wash the feet, achmana, arghya, dhupa, deepa, naivedya. So all these things, all different dashopachara or panchopachara or shodashopachara, or even 64 items will be given. Chappan bhog, 57 bhoga will be given to the Lord. Maybe you can give thousands, whatever. According to your capacity, you will be giving offering. So, etc. That's why the word etc. Formerly, when Ramakrishna used to offer cooked food, etc., to the Mother, used to see an extraordinary ray of light coming out, an extraordinary ray of light. So, whenever you offer food to the Lord, whether it may be milk or sugar or fruits or whatever, agarbatti or lamp or water, whatever. So, what is happening behind the scene? Through the experience of Sri Ramakrishna, you will come to know the reality, what is happening when you offer food to the Lord. Now you can, with faith, you can imagine what is happening because you are seeing it now. Ramakrishna's through the experience of Ramakrishna. You used to see an extraordinary ray of light coming out, beaming from her eyes. It touched all the offered articles. That extraordinary beam of light would come and touch all the offered articles, took their essential parts. So for God, it is not just taking food physically. What do? You also, when you take it, goes to this thing, get digested. Only the nutrition, the essential part is taken as nutrition, as energy, and the rest, whatever is not required, it will be thrown off, excreted. Now, the Lord doesn't take all the things, food, essential part will be taken. So extraordinary ray of light coming out, beaming from her eyes. It touched all the offered articles. That beam of light would go and touch all the article of food, whatever was offered, took their essential part, ate, consumed that essential part, forgot that is enough, and withdrew itself again into her eyes. So how the Lord receives your offering. So you can imagine this now. That's the reality happening. Ramakrishna could see it. The divine incarnation is seeing what, showing us what is happening. So not only to gods and goddesses, when you offer things, maybe offering in your house to Lord Krishna or Shiva or whatever, whichever god or goddess, it's to the same God. And even during the Pitrupaksha, during the Pitarpaksh, whatever you offer during that time, after the Mahalaya Amavasya, before the Durga Puja, you offered this Navaratri, the Pitarpaksha. At the time you offer to the mains or to your ancestors. So the same way, they will not be taking the physical food, but the essence of the food is taken. For them, that is enough because they don't have this physical body. We need it because we have the physical body. But the gods have the divine body, so only the essence is taken. Even the Pitrus, your ancestors also, almost may do the same thing. So have faith in our scriptures, in our beliefs, in our rituals, what we are doing. And it is being proved they're all true. Don't be skeptics. Don't be agnostics. Lose the charm of the life. Don't suffer. Enjoy the life like this, because by studying the divine incarnation, you can see all these things are true. All our scriptures are true. So you can enjoy the life now. So whenever now you offer the food or offer anything for the Lord, whether it is flowers, whether it is dhuna, dhupa, incense sticks, whether it is arati, the Lord is accepting it. Whatever you give out of love, you should give it out of love. It should not be a drudgery or mechanical thing. You should give it with love. So the Lord will accept it. So again, we will go through that. Formerly, when Ramakrishna offered cooked food, etc., to the mother, he used to see an extraordinary ray of light coming out, beaming from her eyes. It touched all the offered articles, took their essential parts, and withdrew itself again into her eyes. Now he saw that even before the offering was made, even before the offering, he used to tell the mantra. Now we have to tell the mudras, we have to show the mantras, we have to throw that sacred water on the food articles, telling the mantra. Idam sopakarna nevedyam. Krishnaya namaha, Ramakrishnaya namaha, Sarvadev Devi Swarupaya Shri Ramakrishnaya namaha, Ganganapataye namaha, Hanumate namaha, or whatever, whichever gods or goddesses, when you are offering, you have to tell all those mantras. Then you have to sprinkle that sacred water, the achmana, the samanya argya water on that food. Om etasmai sopakarna nevedyaya namaha, Om etasmai sopakarna nevedyaya namaha, Om etasmai sopakarna nevedyaya namaha. Then you have to show this avaguntana mudra on that Om. Then you have to show the what do you call the another mudra, the Dhenu mudra, Vam on that. Then you have to take little water, the sacred water into the hands. Then you have to offer all that thing to the pranas. Om pranaya swaham, apanaya swaham, vyanaya swaham, udanaya swaham, samanaya swaha, showing different mudras. So all that, it will take almost 5 to 6 minutes. All that ritual has to be done. Now Ramakrishna would start to do the ritual. And what is happening? Even before Ramakrishna started telling the mantras and offering, the Divine Mother is present there. Earlier it was just rays coming out. Now after the vision, after the realization of Divine Mother, now she's even coming before he started offering and taking the food, consuming the food. She started eating physically. She used to come and taste everything physically. He could see that. Now, after this vision of Divine Mother, realization of Divine Mother here, Kali, now he saw that even before the offering was made, the same mother in her very person, the same mother in her very person sat down to take the offerings, illumining the temple with the effulgence of her holy presence. Because of the presence of Divine Mother, they are sitting there and accepting the food. Because of the presence in person of the Divine Mother, the whole temple would be filled with effulgence. Mother would sit down and take the food, consume the food, whatever offered by Sri Ramakrishna. Now we saw that even before the offering was made, the same mother in her very person sat down to take the offerings, illumining the temple with the effulgence of her holy presence. One day, Hriday came suddenly at the time of worship. When Hriday came there, suddenly during the worship, at the time of worship, and saw the master had taken in his hands an arghya consisting of China roses and vilva leaves, which he was going to offer at the lotus feet of the Divine Mother. So in the beginning of the puja, we have to offer arghya. Arghya in the common sense is when you don't have anything, we take little water and offer it to the Lord as the simplest means. You can see people standing in the Ganga or any Yamuna or river, they take water in the hands. That's the least thing. You don't have any vessels. You have the least thing. You can do the Surya Arghya, Samarpana to your Pitrus. You can do that Arghya water and offer it to them. thinking that you are giving some higher things to just giving water, imagining giving food and other thing, that is also will suffice, whatever little you have. But when you can give everything, so in one of the ways of puja, here offering arghya is, what Ramakrishna is doing is, I'm now discussing all these things in the science of worship on Monday evening. In the science of worship, all these things, the rituals are being discussed. In that, the arghya, how is arghya prepared? Bilvapatra is taken. Then on the Bilvapatra, we put the sandalwood paste, the red sandalwood and the white sandalwood. We put it on all the three leaves. Then we put that rice or akshata. Kshata means broken. Akshata means unbroken rice. So we dip that very little ghee or clarified butter, and then we mix little turmeric or the sindoor, the vermilion, and make it either red or yellow, golden light, and then keep on that leaf. Then we took the durva grass, which is very much liked by Ganesha, the durva grass. So is kept there on this leaf. So the first is Bilvapatra, then all the three leaf we we apply the sandal paste, then we keep the akshata or that rice. If you don't have the capacity to do that akshata with ghee and akshata with that ghee and turmeric, nothing, just washed rice is enough. You can keep the rice on that. Then the durva grass, then you keep a multi-petaled flowers on that, and then now that is called arghya. Now you offer at the feet of the Lord. What is the indication of that? What is the significance of that? It is the Bilva represents the Gnana, wisdom, just like the three eyes of Lord Shiva or Divine Mother, which represents the divine knowledge. So it is knowledge, our knowledge. It's aspect of the intelligence of our mind. Then Akshata represents the Atmastu. Then the Durva represents the our sense of I, that ego. Then that flower represents the chitta, the mental stuff, the mind stuff. So what is the whole arghya representing? It is representing your mind, your personality, that is yourself. So if you are offering that arghya at the feet of the Lord, means before puja or during the puja, that means you are offering yourself, the whole, your mind, you yourself are the mind. So that mind, the gross form of the mind is this body. The subtle form of this body is mind. So the mind with the intelligence, the ego, the chitta, then the samshyatmika manas, everything, the totality of the mind with the devotion. You know that sandalwood paste is indicative of, is signifying devotion. With the, we always dip the flower with the sandal paste. Om ete gandha pushpe, gandha pushpe. So the pushpa is dipped, is smeared with sandal paste to show that I'm giving it with devotion. So the sandal paste represents the devotion. So this is arghya. Now I offer at the feet of the Lord, means I'm completely surrendering myself. I'm offering my mind and the whole body at your feet. That is the indication of arghya. All this is being explained in the puja class on Monday evening. 6 o'clock, I do that discussion of the puja class. Everything is explained there. So now Ramakrishna, while doing the puja, he was offering that arghya. How did he do that? Now suddenly our Hriday came. One day Hriday came suddenly at the time of worship and saw that the master had taken in his hand an arghya. So I explained what is arghya according to puja. So he had taken that arghya with Bilvapatra, then akshat, that is sandal paste, and arghya, what do you call the akshata, the rice and the durva grass and the flower. So totally it's called arghya, representing different aspects of our mind. So consisting of China roses. He had put there China roses and Vilva leaves. I told you about Vilva leaves, which he was going to offer at the lotus feet of the Divine Mother. He was absorbed in thinking of her when he cried out suddenly saying, wait, Mother, wait. Let me utter the mantra first. Why do you want to take all the offerings and all these flowers and other thing even before I am uttering the mantra? So Ramakrishna, like a child, is thinking that the mother should take it only after the mantra is repeated. But for the Divine Mother, what is that to her? She can take it even before that. But here, just like a child, Master is telling, wait, Mother, do not take that, do not accept the offering until I finish my mantra. For me, it is a ritual. for the Divine Mother, it is her sweet will. And Ramakrishna as a child is seeing that. And this is noticed by Hriday. I will explain again into it. It is very charming. One day, Hriday came suddenly at the time of worship and saw the master had taken in his hands an arghya consisting of China roses and bilva leaves, which he was going to offer at the feet of the Divine Mother. He was absorbed in thinking of her when he cried out suddenly, saying, "Wait, Mother, wait, wait. Let me utter the mantra first, and then wilt take it. Thou wilt take it, and then thou wilt take it." He then offered the food ritually before finishing the worship. Even before the portion of taking the food, he was just giving arghya. It was the first portion of the worship. He has not come, the offering the Naivedya is almost last portion of the worship, but it will be all kept ready on that food table. So it will be made ready and they will offer it at the end of the puja. Dhupa, Deepa, Naivedya. So after that, there will be one or two more things to complete the puja. Punarachmaniya, then all the other things, Japasamarpana, everything, all those things will be done in the end of the puja. So just 3 or 4 steps earlier to the end of puja, Naivedya will be done offering. But he is offering now arghya. The first portion of the puja is being done. Another 40 minutes or 1 hour is there to do the Naivedya. Mother came and started taking the food already. So even before Ramakrishna had finished the worship, in the beginning itself, because mother is eager to eat. So he told, Mother, wait, I will finish the ritual. Mother was not ready. So even before that, he then offered the food ritually before finishing the worship. So now you can see he is doing with love and devotion and is seeing mother, and mother is taking before. What will the people externally think? Oh, this fellow has gone mad. Because there for him it is reality, mother is reality. And he's feeding her, worshipping her with great devotion, Ragatmika Bhakti. For us it is Vaidhi Bhakti, just all rules and regulations. So the person with that, he doesn't see all those things, he will think, oh, Ramakrishna has gone. Something has happened. So wait, mother, let me utter the mantra first, and then thou will take it. But will the mother wait? He then offered the food ritually before finishing the worship. Previously, at the time of worship and meditation, he saw a wonderful living presence. Previously, at the time of worship and meditation, he saw a wonderful living presence in the stone image before him. It was not now any image of stone. A living presence, mother is there. Previously, at the time of worship and meditation, he saw a wonderful living presence in the stone image before him. Now he did not see that image at all. So now you can find the veracity of image worship. People decry. The modern day people tell that, oh, you should not do image worship. You can now see what is the reality of the image worship. Our rishis and munish and saints have not done these things as something like a joke. It's a reality. Now, Ramakrishna couldn't see the image. So he has worshipped all these times, seeing mother, seeing the living presence of the Divine Mother in that image, stone image before him. Now he did not see the image at all. When he entered the temple, but saw instead standing there the living mother herself. When he entered the temple, Ramakrishna would not see that stone image, but the living mother standing there. Now we did not see the image at all when he entered the temple, but saw instead standing there the living mother herself, all consciousness, with hands that offered boons and freedom from fear. Yesterday I explained about that. Vara Hasta. Hasta means hand like this. The another hand is showing in the left hand showing down like this. Or there'll be so many hands to the Divine Mother, 4 or 10 or something. So in one of the hands she'll be showing below. Exactly. Suppose it is like this. This is Vara Hasta giving boon, ready to give you boon, whatever you want, desires. So reverse that down. this way, showing the palm of the hand like this. That is because the screen and the camera is too small here. I can't show it. If I have to show it, I have to get up and show it like this, down, full down. So that is Abhaya, giving you freedom from fear, protection from fear. So Abhaya, that is called Abhaya Hasta. Hasta means palms, so hands. So mother, you could see that mother standing there, instead the image standing there, the living mother herself, all consciousness, with hands that offered boons and freedom from fear. The master said, I put the palm of my hand. Ramakrishna wanted to test whether it is real or it is just a hallucination of his own mind. Ramakrishna is also not just believing, he just started testing that. So he used to go and feel, keep his hand near the nostrils, nose of the Divine Mother, because whether it is real or not. I put the palm of my hand near her nostrils and felt that mother was actually breathing. So suppose you yourself feel, or go to your father or mother or your child and keep the palm of your hand at the nose, at the nostrils. While taking in, you can feel the cool breath going in. While putting out the breath, you can see the warm breath coming out because it is gone to the body and it gets the temperature there of the lungs and the whole body and it comes out warm. So the air will be warm while coming out, exhaling. While inhaling, it will be cool. So Ramakrishna tested whether the Divine Mother standing there is real or not. He kept his palm at the nostrils of Divine Mother and he could see that the Divine Mother's breathing could be felt. I put the palm of my hand near her nostrils and felt the mother was actually breathing. If you go to India, there is a state called Andhra Pradesh, bordering Karnataka and bordering Tamil Nadu. There is a place called Tirupati. So on the hillocks, you can see that Srinivasa or Lord Venkateshwara. But if you come down the hills, if you go a little further from Tirupati, maybe 40, 50, 60 kilometers, there is one place, Shiva's famous, very famous Shiva temple. So that is in that area in South India, there are 5 famous Shiva temples based on the 5 elements. So we know Akasha Tattva is in Chidambaram. There it is Akasha manifestation of Shiva there, Shiva temple. Then Vayu is the next thing. So that Vayu Linga is here. It's called Kalahasti. Near Tirupati, 40-50 kilometers away from Tirupati, you have this place called Kalahasti. It's Vayu Linga. So when I went to the temple, that was the special, this thing which has been established. It is not established, that's this place where even one of the planet, the demigod, Rahu and Ketu, you know, the Rahu and Ketu, the demigods, the planet, just like the Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, the Saturn, the Shani Graha, the other Grahas, Chandra has established Shiva Linga in Somanatheshwar. He worshipped there. So it is Somanatha. Like that, this Shiva is being worshipped, the Vayu Linga, by Rahu and Ketu. You have any problems of Rahu and Ketu? You can go there, do some worship, and all that problems of Rahu Ketu will be removed. So here, if you go into the temple, I saw it with my own eyes, there is no Shiva Linga there. There is no any emblem of Shiva or image of Shiva or Shiva Linga there. It is just empty. But they will light the lamps. So many lamps in the Sanctum Sanctorum. And that lamp will be constantly flickering. Big lamps, and the light will be lit. Big flame of the lamp will be there. The wicks will be very big and it will always oil will be poured in. So in the sanctum, all that lamp will be constantly flickering. All the time, 24/7, you can see that lamps flickering. And what is the idea? It's Vayu Linga. I told that the aspect of Shiva, the Vayu, the air aspect of Shiva is worshipped there. There is Bhumi Linga, there is Prithvi Linga, there is another Linga for the what do you call, Jalalinga, then the Akasha Linga is in Chidambaram. Like that, there are so many linga. The fire linga is in Tiruvannamalai, where Ramana Maharshi lived. This is Vayu Linga. So the idea is Shiva's breathing of the lungs. If you go into that temple, you can inhale the air which has gone to the lungs or breathed by the breathing of the Shivas, that air, you can inhale that. If you go to the temple, inside that the temple in the sanctum, it is the air coming out of the nostril of Lord Shiva. So that's why there is no linga. The Vayu Linga, it is the air coming out of the lungs of or nostrils of Lord Shiva. So if you go to the temple, you will see that flames flickering. And if you are in the temple while moving that, you are inhaling the air inhaled by Lord Shiva. That is the belief there. If you chance to visit, to go to Andhra Pradesh in South India, you can go to that Vayulinga, that is Kalahasti, near Tirupati, 40 or 50 kilometers. So there you will be inhaling. So now here, Ramakrishna is feeling. He's keeping his palm. I put the palm of my hand. Ramakrishna is himself telling, palm of my hand near her nostrils, and felt the mother was actually breathing. I observed very closely, but I could never see the shadow of mother. You know, we human beings, the light will fall on us, and wherever the light cannot be penetrated, it will be reflected or absorbed. So we see the shadow behind wherever the light of the sun cannot fall, that much of the area. So you see your shadow, because we don't emit light. We absorb or take the light from the sun. But it is not with the gods and goddesses, it is not so. They emit their own light. That's why the name Devata, Deva, Devi means effulgent. Light comes out of them. So they are of the form of light, effulgence. That's why the name Deva or Devi. Deva or Devi means we think it's God, but it comes from the root word in Sanskrit, means shining. Light is emanating from them. So since the light is coming out of their body, there is no need of the sunlight or the external light to show them. Their light itself is their self-luminous. So there will be no shadow for gods and goddesses. It's only for us living beings or human beings. We need the reflected light or the light of the sun or the moon or whatever the external light we need it, of the lamp or maybe of the tube light, of the electricity light or whatever. But for gods and goddesses, they don't need the external light. That's why, because they're self-effulgent, self-illumined, so there'll be no shadow for gods. And how to differentiate between man, ordinary man, and the gods? So they are self-luminous and there will be no shadow. So here Ramakrishna is telling that after that he felt that Divine Mother was breathing. I observed very closely, but I could never see the shadow of Mother's divine person. Ramakrishna himself is telling, I observed very closely. I couldn't find the shadow of Mother's divine person on the temple wall in the light of the lamp at night. I heard from my room, when Ramakrishna used to stay in the room, because he was given a room for there to stay. Now, whatever you go to Dakshineshwar, you see the maintained there, Ramakrishna's room is still there. So when he used to be there in the night time, when he closed all the temple, everything sanctum is closed, all the temples are closed. Now he has gone to the rest. When he's there in the room, in the night time, Ramakrishna is telling, I heard from my room the jingling sounds of the mother's anklet, the Divine Mother, Kali, or whatever, Durga, whatever you call Parvati. She used to take the form of a small child, a girl child, wearing beautiful anklets. You know, our mothers wear the anklets. So that when they are walking, that anklet sound will be made, the jingling sound will be made. So here Divine Mother would take the form of a small child of 7 or 8, Kali. She used to be walking, climbing up the stairs there, going up to the roof of the temple, walking here and there. So Ramakrishna could hear the jingling of that anklets, mother's anklets. I heard from my room the jingling sounds of the mother's anklet. as she went upstairs like a merry little child. How the small children, small girls would climb up to this thing, like the Divine Mother would take that form of 7 or 8 year old girl and merrily going around the steps. You have to imagine all these things. How the Divine Mother is moving up merrily, just like a small girl. I heard from my room the jingling sounds of the mother's anklet as she went upstairs like a merry little child, girl. I came out to verify and found that. So when I heard that jingling sound, I came out to verify. What is that jingling sound? Naturally, we will feel that when there is some jingling sound, we are curious, we want to know. So Ramakrishna was also curious. What is that jingling sound? Let me see. He came out to verify. And I actually saw Ramakrishna is telling she, that is Divine Mother, with like a small child, girl child, like a girl with her hair disheveled. Hair disheveled. Elokeshi in Bengal, it's called Elokeshi. Disheveled hair. She, with her hair disheveled, was actually standing on the veranda of the first floor of the temple. Was actually standing on the veranda of the first floor of the temple and was now weaving Calcutta, and she was weaving Ganga the next. She's weaving at Calcutta there, and the flow of Ganga here the next. Mother was standing there on the roof of the temple, disheveled hair, like a girl. She's standing there. Ramakrishna saw was actually standing on the veranda of the first floor of the temple and was now weaving Calcutta and next the Ganga. So if you go to Dakshineshwar, you can see all that what Ramakrishna is explaining here. One now felt awestruck. One now felt awestruck, said Hriday. Hriday is experiencing that. He's telling what would happen when Ramakrishna was doing puja and moving about. He could see, he felt, one would now felt awestruck, said Hriday, when one entered the Kali temple, even when the master was not there. Even when the master was not there, because he is awakened Divine Mother. Mother is now presence felt. So even when master was not there inside the sanctum, worshipping, Hriday is telling one felt awestruck, said Hriday, when one entered the Kali temple, even when the master was not there, let alone when he was. So when Ramakrishna would be there worshipping, you could see the throbbing presence of Mother. But even when master was not there, we could feel that presence of Divine Mother Kali. So one would feel awestruck, said Hriday. Yet I could not give up the temptation of seeing how the master behaved during the time of worship. So again, curiosity of Hriday roused. Let me see how master worships, what is happening there. So how master behaved during the time of worship. When I suddenly came there on many occasions, filled my heart with awe and devotion. But doubt arose when I came out. When I go there and see, I would be filled with awe and devotion. But as soon as I come out, because of the Maya, doubt would arise. But doubt arose when I came out. I thought, has uncle really gone mad? Otherwise, why does he do such forbidden act at the time of worship? I felt apprehensive about what the Rani and Mathur Babu, the son-in-law of Rani, would think and say when they came to know of it. They come to know that Ramakrishna is worshipping in this peculiar way. He is giving the food offering in the beginning itself. So he's talking to Divine Mother. He's feeding the Divine Mother. Everything is different, topsy-turvy. So if they come to know the puja is not being done properly according to the scriptures' injunctions, so what would they think? So what would the other people think? So they would think that Ramakrishna has gone mad because he's not behaving like all the other people. I felt apprehensive. Hriday is telling, I felt apprehensive about what the Rani and Mathur Babu would think and say when they came to know of it. But such thoughts never crossed my uncle's mind. My Mama Ramakrishna, such thought, whether somebody would see, somebody would think something. So not this very, very important thing. We have to train this to our children, and we also should train our mind. Tasmin tushte jagat tushtam. The last I do the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarva Yagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Pranite Pranitam Jagat. Always be worried to please the Lord. Do not be worried even an iota what other people are going to think about me, and worry over the score and waste your energy. Always concentrate, how shall I please the Lord? Because He's the only reality. So we waste 80% of our energy to show to the world what we are not. We want to please the world and get into all waste our energies. Do not waste your energy on imagination, wild imagination. What would that person think of me? What would this person think of me? What will the world think of me? My only botheration should be, how shall I please the Lord? If you please the Lord, the whole world will be pleased with you. If you try to please the individual people, nobody will be interested in you. Everybody will dissuade and go away from you. So always note, this is very, very important. We have to take the life lesson from here, Ramakrishna's behavior. Try to please the Lord. Yeah, for the sake of some vyavahara, business and other things, externally you act that you are pleasing the human beings. In the management classes and the course and workshops, they will teach you. When you meet the people, you may not be feeling very pleasant to meet that person at the first sight itself. But even then, to show a smiling face, or to show all the 32 teeth, and then show him, tell him, though you are not feeling very happy with him, you have to tell, very glad to meet you, sir. Though you may not be feeling glad. So in the world, do all those things, but internally, you try to please only God. Please the Lord only. So now, Hriday is telling my mama, Ramakrishna, I was thinking so many things. What would other people think? I felt apprehensive about what Rani and Mathur Babu would think and say, what they came to know, if they came to know of it. But such thought never crossed my uncle's mind. My mama's mind, that is Ramakrishna Mama, Hriday is telling, because he's his maternal uncle. So in my mama's mind, in Ramakrishna's mind, that thought never crossed. So that should be the lesson. Just concentrate on pleasing the Lord, and the world will be pleased with you. Tasmin tushte jagat tushtam. If the Lord is happy, the whole world will be happy. So, but such thoughts never crossed my uncle's mind, nor did he give ear to what I told him about them. Again, even when he complained, many people will be telling, oh, those people will tell this way, these people are telling like this way. Somebody is telling you should not do like this, you should always concentrate on earning money and pleasing others, all those things. Let people tell. Let people tell whatever. Yes, you need not oppose them or fight with them or argue with them. Yes, I'll try to follow. I'll try to take your advice. Thank you for your concern. Yeah. But in your heart of heart, always know, try to please the Lord. That's enough. So though Mathur is advising Ramakrishna, but such thought never crossed my uncle's mind, nor did he give ear to what I told him about them. Again, I could not venture now to speak to him much, as why he couldn't go and advise and talk to him. An indescribable fear and hesitation came and pressed my mouth. When I wanted to go and disturb him, telling that you are not doing properly, when I wanted to disturb Ramakrishna's way of puja and that these things, some indescribable fear came into my heart. Hriday is telling, and hesitation came and somebody pressed my mouth not to go and disturb Sri Ramakrishna at the time. I knew not why. I felt an indefinable distance between him and me for some unknown reasons. Having no other alternative left, I served him silently and as far as I could. I don't know what fear had took over me. I could feel the distance. He's very high and a very ordinary person. So I felt an indefinable distance between him and me for some unknown reason. Having no other alternative left, I served him silently as far as I could. But I felt apprehensive lest he should cause a scene someday. Something might happen, people will come and observe. So there will be a scene created. What will happen? People will start talking ill. Already he himself is feeling, because Ramakrishna is doing all this very special type of devotion. So Mama has gone mad. Then what will the other people think? He is my Mama. Even then I'm feeling so. Then what will the other people think? What will the Mathur think? What will Rani think? The Rasmani. Hriday gave us the following account of Master's action, which when he entered the temple suddenly at the time of worship filled his heart at once with awe, fear, and devotion. He said, I saw uncle, that is Mama, prepare an arghya. Just now I told what is arghya, that flower that you have to place at the feet of the Divine Mother, touching at the head and the heart and the two legs, and then placing at the feet. That is called arghya. There are so many types of different arghya. Here, in this worship, in our Ramakrishna Ashrama or in Bengal or in Orissa and in that place area, this is the way the arghya is given. In other places, it may be different. So now that arghya is with that all Bilvapatra, then Gandha Chandan means that is the sandal paste and the Durva grass. Then we are giving the flower, then the Akshata, everything is kept and offered at the feet. So now our Hriday is saying, I saw uncle, Mama, that is Ramakrishna, prepare an arghya consisting of China roses and vilva leaves, touching with his head, his bosom, all his limbs, and even his own feet, and at last offer it at the lotus feet of the Mother of the universe. Instead, first offering to Mother, he started touching that. You have to go and touch the head of the deity first with the arghya. Then you have to touch the heart of the deity. Then you have to touch the limbs. Then you have to touch the feet and then offer. That is the way we offer arghya. But instead, Ramakrishna, instead of touching the deity, the head and the heart, the bosom and the limbs and the feet, he started touching his own head. He started touching his own bosom. He started touching his own limbs and legs also. And then offering it to Divine Mother. I saw uncle prepare an arghya consisting of China roses and vilva leaves, touch it with his head, his bosom, all his limbs, and even his own feet, and at last offer it at the lotus feet of the Mother of the universe. I saw his bosom and eyes always reddish, like those of a drunkard. I need not explain that. You will have seen drunkards. When they are fully drunk and intoxicated, you can see their eyes will be bloodshot, red. So here, Ramakrishna's eyes are also red in color. Why? Just like a drunkard. He is drunk with the intoxication of the Divine Mother. There, the drunkards are drunk with the intoxication of the alcohol. But here, Ramakrishna the blood is rushing towards the head because of the emotion, because of the thinking of the Divine Mother or God in the heart and in the head at the eyebrows. So the blood is rushing. As such, the blood rushes. Major portion of our blood from the heart is pumped into the brain. The brain has to be functioning. So more blood is pumped into the head, to the brain. That's why when you take food, so there will be less pumping in of the blood to the brain, and it will go for the digestion to the stomach. That's why after the taking food, you feel you want to sleep a little, because the blood will be coming down. Little less flow will be there to the brain, and it will come down to the digestion. So you feel a little sleepy after the food. But here, all the time, Ramakrishna is thinking of the consciousness and God and Divine Mother in the portion of the bosom or the chest, that is Anahata Chakra and Agna Chakra at the higher level, at the higher plane of consciousness. So the blood is constantly rushing towards the head portion. So his eyes are always bloodshot, red. I saw his bosom and eyes always reddish, like those of a drunkard. Reeling in that condition, he left the worshipper's seat and ascending the altar, caressing the Divine Mother by affectionately touching her chin, and began singing, laughing, joking, and conversing with her. Or sometimes he caught hold of her hands and danced. I'll again read this wonderful thing, wonderful devotion, wonderful worship. Hriday is telling, I saw Ramakrishna's Mama's bosom and eyes always reddish like that of a drunkard, reeling in that condition. He couldn't stand steady, just like the intoxicated person, intoxicated with alcohol. When it's too much intoxicated, it'll be really like that. Ramakrishna is too much intoxicated with this divine love, with his experience, with his consciousness. So the body has lost control. So he's reeling in that condition. He left the worshipper's seat and ascending, he would climb up the altar, caressing the Divine Mother. How does the child caress the mother, show his love and affection towards the mother? Likewise, this divine child, Sri Ramakrishna, went to climb the altar, ascending the altar, caress the Divine Mother, touching the chin, touching the head like this, touching the person of the Divine Mother just like the child does. How does the child caress the mother? How does the child show its love towards the mother? So, ascending the altar, caressing the Divine Mother by affectionately touching her chin, and began singing. To please Divine Mother, he started singing, laughing, joking, and conversing with her. Or sometimes he caught hold of her hands and started dancing like a child with the Divine Mother. So you can feel it, meditate it, think of this again and again, on the divine sport of the divine incarnation with the divinity, the Parabrahma Swarupa as mother. So until the next class, that is on Sunday, we should be meditating on this aspect. Read this again and again. I have again reminded you, Shardanandaji Maharaj is telling, it will do immense good accrue. It will accrue to us if you think of this, if you read it again and again, meditate on that. So it will do us immense good in spiritual life. So let us meditate until the next class. Think all of this, what is happening. Meditate on that. So and be benefited. You can go. Your mind will become very pure. All the impurities, all your karmas will be cut asunder. All the bad karmas, the prarabdha karma, the papa karma, everything will be cut asunder. It will do us immense good. Thinking on this, and we will proceed forward in spiritual life immensely. So, with this beautiful aspect of Master's divine worship, we will end our class here. It's already time. You can use this another 8 minutes or 7 minutes for questions and doubts. If you have any questions or doubt, we can entertain it. Yes, yes. May I know who is speaking?
It's Colin Chetty, Swamiji.
Oh, Colin Chetty. Please tell Colin Chetty.
Thank you so much, Swamiji, for a wonderful lesson on the worship of the Mother. Considering that we now in Adi Masam, and in South Africa, we normally do a lot of prayer with what we generally call a porridge prayer. It would be nice to know and educate us as to how we should be doing this worship, Swamiji.
Yeah. Yeah, we can internalize that for ourselves. So that will be only the pure relationship between you and your Ishtadevata.
Yes, Swamiji. Considering with also we have the coronavirus, and we normally do this prayer for measles and those kind of afflictions. It would be wise for us. We would love to know what's a proper way of doing this prayer, Swamiji.
Yeah, nothing, no proper or improper. Your devotion is very, very important. Just pray, pour out your heart to the divine. Whatever you feel, you pour out, because the Lord is our father and mother. He's not a faraway entity or something sitting there with power to punish us. The Lord is our own. He is much, much more intensely nearer than our father and mother. So you just pour out to your heart. That will be the best worship you can do.
Okay.
Whatever you have in your heart, don't worry about the rituals. Just pour out your heart to the Lord while you are offering and other things. That will suffice. That will be more than enough.
Yes, Swami. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Any other doubts?
Pranam Maharaj, Madhu here.
Pranam, is it Madhu?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, please tell Madhu.
Maharaj, you told about doing the puja, and just now you told about rituals are not that important. So my question was
I'm
related
not
to
telling rituals are not that important. Whatever rituals you are doing, please do it. Please continue with that, because we have not reached to the level of Ramakrishna's state of Ragatmika Bhakti. But that is our goal. So while doing all these rituals, this is an help. The rituals are a help to take your mind towards God. Do all those rituals, but pour your heart and soul into it. That's what I told.
Yeah, and related was, we don't know this the right way of doing the puja, Maharaj. We just do it with our only bhava, rather than doing exact the same way as it is defined in the scriptures. So the argya, pada, puja. So all this in our daily puja we don't do it. So we just do
I'm
it.
now taking that class, as I told you, on Monday evening, and it is also on the YouTube. Whenever you want in that channel, we live stream on Monday from 6 to 7 here South African time. It will be 9:30 to 10:30 Indian time. So otherwise, you can go to the channel. I'm in detail with all the PowerPoint and everything. I'm explaining about puja, the rituals, the mudra, the significance. You can learn and do it. But when you see, just Ramakrishna used to tell about worship and rituals, that rituals are just like the exterior of a coconut. So, have you seen a coconut? There'll be an outer shell, not the outer, this thing, fiber, then inner shell, then inside which the coconut will be protected, which is very, very important to you. So, the substance, the Lord, the consciousness, and this knowledge is very nicely hidden inside our rituals. Whatever our munis and rishis and saints have done these rituals, they are encasing this truth, the knowledge inside that. So when you go on doing that rituals, then gradually your mind will enter into the original things. So you can learn. There's no problem. You can learn simple things, Panchopachar Puja and other things, simple things, at least for the sake of knowledge. And then from there you can step to the next level, that is Ragatmik. First with the Vaidhi Bhakti, learn it, and then go to the Ragatmika Bhakti. But simultaneously, just like in Ramakrishna's life, you see that both the human aspect and the divine aspect was being manifested. Likewise, you do the rituals too, don't give up that. But at the same time, also pour out your heart. Try to get into that Ragatmika Bhakti, devotion and other things too.
Om Maharaj.
Yeah, Om, may I know who is speaking?
Om Maharaj, Naresh is a question on the chat group.
Yeah, please let me see. I will open up, or whatever, you can read the question.
What is Prarabdha Karma and Sanchita Karma?
No, it is Prarabdha Karma. What is Prarabdha Karma and Sanchita Karma? I have explained about that, but even then I will explain it. Karma. So whatever work we do goes to form the karma, the result of that. So whether good karmas will come to us if you are helping others, serving others, doing good to others with our sweet talk, with our sweet work and service. So whatever we do good to others will come to us in the form of good karmas, the result of that. And whatever we harm us, whatever we do with selfishness, that will come to us as the bad karmas. So that is called papa. And whatever good things we do is called punya. To serve the God, the worship, the puja, helping others, giving medicines, this is called punya. So the sum total of all that karmas which we have done for so many lives, maybe thousands or billions or millions, as I told you, to get the first human life, we have to undergo 8.4 million lives. So after that, to realize God, you need 1 billion life punya to get this thing. In Vivek Chudamani, I discussed about that. So now the sum totality of all the good work and bad work, the punya and papa you have done, is called Sanchita Karma. Sanchita means the whatever you have collected. So that is called Sanchita Karma. Then from that Sanchita Karma, when we are going to get a new life as a human being or as an animal or whatever, we are not given the whole totality of karma to enjoy it. We are given only some portion, very small portion of that karma to be experienced in this life. So that is called prarabdha karma. Now we are going to perform so many new karmas. So that will go and enter into our kitty, that will get stored in our bag of karmas. So that is called agami karma, what we will do now. So the example given by our scripture is just like an archer going to war. He will have so many astras and shastras and armaments or arrows in his quiver. So he will have a bow and arrow. So all that sum totality of all the arrows, that is the missiles, the astras and shastras he has collected through so many things, is the sanchita, total karma. Suppose now I am going to an adversary who is maybe weak or very strong. You will not use all the arrows on him. You will take up one thing, because seeing the strength of the enemy, you will take up one arrow or one missile. You will not use a Brahmastra or a nuclear missile on a sparrow. So you will use a very ordinary weapon on a sparrow. So like that, while coming to this human life, we take some portion of our karma, just like the archer is taking the arrow and then putting it to his bow and then releasing it. So whatever has been released from the bow, you cannot take back that arrow. It has to go and reach the goal, the aim. So that is called prarabdha karma. Now it has started fructifying in this life. I have to undergo so many pain. I have to undergo so much of my punya in the form of happiness. So that is prarabdha karma. Nobody can stop it. So it has already gone out of the arrow. It has to go and reach the goal. But all the other karmas, by your punya karmas, you can neutralize that, doing more and more help to other people, doing all more and more good karmas, karma yoga. You can neutralize all those karmas, sanchita karma, and carefully handling it, you can also see that the new karmas, agami karma, will not accrue to you. But prarabdha karma has to be undergone. But Holy Mother tells, Sharda Devi tells, suppose if you take mantra diksha from the Guru and then do the japa every day, think of the God and take the name of the Lord, do the puja, that can reduce your prarabdha karma. Nobody can overcome prarabdha karma. You have to undergo. But if you do japa, if you take the name of the Lord, if you do the worship, then that can reduce the intensity of the prarabdha karma. Just like Mother gives the example. Suppose according to your prarabdha karma, a big plow or something should fall on your leg and your leg is to be broken, fractured. If you are taking the name of the Lord, that is japa and other things you are doing constantly, regularly, steadily, by whichever is being given by the Guru. I'm again telling the mantra given by the Guru. If you are doing that, then that karma which was supposed to break your leg or fracture your leg will be neutralized or will go away with a pin prick. These are the words of Mother Sharda Devi. So this is Sanchita karma, totality of all the karmas which we have done. Then prarabdha karma is which has already started fructifying in this life. Then agami karma is which we are going to gain that by our activities in this present life. I think I'm clear.
Pranam, Maharaj.
Yeah. May I know who is speaking?
I am Chauhan from Kolkata, India.
Oh, Shohan, Kolkata. Please tell, Shohan.
No, not Chauhan, Maharaj.
Oh, Chauhan. Can you spell it?
So, CHAYAN.
Oh, CHAYAN. Okay, Chauhan. Okay, please tell. Bolun, ki bolte ho?
Maharaj, my question is, yesterday's I have learned that chitta is given much more importance over buddhi and manas in the higher state of mind, in the samadhi. Is there any special significance of that?
No, chitta is not given because it's one aspect of the mind. It is the mind stuff. See, whether it is manas, whether it is buddhi, all that is a mental modification of the chitta. See, chitta is the stuff
Okay.
with which matter with which the mind is made out of. Now, just like your body is made out of these molecules, these cells, and different muscles and other things. So different muscles may be performing different work. Like that, the stuff or the matter with which the whole of the mind is made out of is chitta. So that different modification of the chitta is manas, always doubting, always trying to find what is the thing behind it. So this is manas. So that aspect of the chitta taking the modification, the mind takes different waves. That is called chitta vritti, modification of the mind. So if it takes something very steady intelligence and taking some decisions, that is buddhi. Then that sense of I, because of the proximity of the soul, Atman, you get your own individuality. That is ego, ahankara. So these are all different modification of our chitta. Chitta is taking, and due to its modification, that mind stuff will take these forms. That's all. So nothing higher or greater.
Okay,
The same chitta modifies into all these things. You can purify it by your thoughts, and when you purify, pure mind and pure God and pure Atman are one and the same. These are the statement of Sri Ramakrishna. So purifying of our mind is important. I think I'm clear. I have answered your question, Shohan.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Dhanabad.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other doubts? Shall I close the session with a prayer if you don't have any question? Okay, I'll close with the prayer. So I told you the meaning of that prayer too. Always try to please the Lord. If you try to please the human being, it's very impossible. Nobody will be pleased. But if you try to please the Lord, then the whole world will be pleased. That is the simple meaning of this shloka. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Namaskar to all of you. Om Namo Narayanaya. Jai Shri Ramakrishna. So tomorrow, Saturday evening, we have the Bhagavad Gita class. Then Sunday, Monday, early morning, we are having the same class continued at 6:30 in the morning, South African time, and Indian time it is 10 o'clock. Now, on Monday evening, we have the significance of worship or science of worship dealt in detail. So you can come to know about the worship, whatever Sri Ramakrishna is doing. You will get the details of it if you come there. And if you want to if you have any problem in the timings, then it is already there. Everything is uploaded. It is there in the channel. You can view it anytime. Then Tuesday we have the Vivek Chudamani, the Crucible of Discrimination by Shankaracharya. Then again Wednesday we have Bhagavad Gita class. Thursday, Friday, as usual, we are having early morning Great Master Leela Prasanga. All are welcome to that. Namaste, Jai Ram Krishna.